Welcome to this Autumn Equinox Rune Reading, celebrating the time of Mabon, the harvest, and reading on the period from the 21st of September to the 30th of October. I have completed this reading on the 15th of August because it felt right for me to do that. So I'm just going to share my screen with you now. Find my to share. Here we are. Let's just make that bigger and put everything in place. There we are. It's already all in place and ready. There we are. Okay. And so the runes that I chose, that came out rather, because I don't look for particular runes, I just put my fingers in and take what feels right. The first one shows the general situation, and that's the rune at the bottom. And the second rune that I pulled, the rune at the top, is the one that actually shows a little bit more detail on the themes that are likely to be presenting within this period. So to come to the first one, Wraith or Rado, which is in its upright orientation, I feel that this represents the general picture around the solstice, around the equinox, perhaps a few days before, and, but gathering momentum around that time. And this Rado, it's the wheel, it's riding forwards. It's very much similar to the Wheel of Fortune in its upright position in tarot. And I always use the analogy of either riding on a bicycle downhill, the wind is in your hair, it's a gentle breeze, it's comfortable, and there is this feeling of freedom that comes with that. And I feel that what this speaks of is in our, the everyday life that is around us in many places, will be this sense of being bogged down, having more and more around us that just feels a little bit sticky. We want to move on from it. We want there to be change, but it hasn't been coming in a concrete form. And this rune is not just about ideas. Ideas are important, but when this rune appears, there is always the sense of concrete moving forwards in some areas at least. Because what I want to say is this speaks of new pathways. It always does. But sometimes a new pathway will be long-lived and successful. And certainly I feel that some of the pathways indicated by this rune in this reading, the pathways of progress, will be of that kind. They will be good and they will, gather momentum and carry on, and we will be pleased with them. Others will be more like experiments, that something starts, it's good that it started, and within a short space of time, it is decided that something else has to be tried. But again, it's a step towards forward progress, whilst other forward progress in other areas seems to be taking place much more than it has been. So what kind of progress would we be looking at with this? I feel very much it's particularly relevant where progress has been held back, or decisions have not been made, or people don't know what to do, but suddenly it would appear that, well, let's try this, we've got to do something different here. And to the extent that something different would be done, rather than it just being talked about. But as to the issues likely to be arising, some of which would relate to the need for new pathways, and others, would be fresh things that are arising. But of course, there still needs to be responses and consideration and evaluation. The rune that has appeared in relation to this is Manas or Malva, which relates very strongly to humanitarian issues. It's about what we give, what we are willing to give, what we want others to have, what we are willing to sacrifice so that others may have something that we would say it's fair and equitable for them to have. In our personal lives, this is about the help that we give to others, and also you're being of service to mankind in some way. And this rune will always appear, almost always, in the readings of nurses, doctors, social workers, or people that are helpful in some other way. But also very often it will show up in the readings of people who are artists or musicians, because of course their work is inspiring and helpful to people. So it isn't always about sacrifice, but what this is saying is that there will be more humanitarian issues that are up for discussion, that are being talked about, that we are being challenged really to find solutions to. And many of these have been there for a long time, but they maybe haven't come to public attention or manifested strongly enough that we just have to take notice of them. I do see this sometimes being in relation to countries where there is, that are not part of the Western world, where we would say they were third world countries. Some of them, not all of them, because there are also humanitarian issues, especially associated with poverty, that I'm feeling here. And that could relate equally, to my homeland, where there are big problems, the UK, US, Germany, France, and I'm sure many, many other countries where increasingly people who are trying very hard, they're doing their best within the systems that are there, but they are still in a way being disenfranchised or not having realistic scope to make any progress in their own situations. And I feel that this is also something that is going to increasingly have to be looked at, because it will demand more attention. I hope that doesn't mean that things have to get worse, but of course there's many ways that a situation can demand attention. If we look at the situation, for example, on the island of Maui, or that's the best way I can pronounce it, where so much has been destroyed by fire, whether we think, of the rights and wrongs of how that situation was handled, I know there is criticism, we still have to look at it and say, well, something different has to happen here, because what was there is no longer there. And it's no longer, something that can work. So this also relates to what is workable and what is not workable in situations where there is a humanitarian aspect that is quite strong, both between the period of the 21st of September and the 30th of October, and continuing onwards from that, because not everything of a humanitarian nature would be dealt with within that time. Lots of question marks arising as to how, lots of different opinions as to how we handle this. Some people saying, well, we don't give any more, we look after ourselves. I feel that view is going to be more prevalent than it has been. But equally, there will be those who say, well, that could be your brother or sister in a different part of the world. I also feel, in addition to the asylum issue having a bigger focus, that there will also be a greater focus on, what we are doing or not doing collectively to help people who are in poor situations in their own, the part of the world where they're currently living, not rather than, them escaping from there. But what can we do to help people that, it's their home? They don't want to escape. They don't want to leave. But there are problems because of maybe their harvest hasn't been so good. It could be as simple as that. But I do feel that there's going to be a much wider discussion, including all sorts of viewpoints, that the breeding ground for which is the period between the 21st of September and the 30th of October. I really, really feel that quite strongly. Now, something strange happened when I took the photograph for these runes. there is nothing blue in the room. I am wearing autumn colours. The colours in the room are yellows, oranges, browns, or again, autumn colours really. And I put the runes on my dining table, which is black, and just, took a quick snap. And then when I downloaded it, I realised that the top of the image was blue. I can't really explain that, but it could be a trick of photography. I know that photography can create tricks. Just a couple of weeks ago, I took a photograph of a view through a window, and I included on the image was what some might decide was a headless and footless apparition. It wasn't. It was a reflection of the rather voluminous dress that I had on, minus my head and feet. The material of the dress was shiny, which was why it showed in the reflection. So I don't really know the reason for that blue colour. It may just be something that happened in the photograph. But when I saw it, I wanted to include that colour in the reading. Of course, when I'm taking the photograph, I've chosen the runes, I'm already in a slightly altered state. So as I looked at that, I saw it as the night sky, with stars in the night sky. I saw how the night sky, we spend more time under the night sky after the autumn equinox, and wherever we are in the northern hemisphere, our time of darkness, greatest darkness, is the winter solstice, the time of starlight, the magic of starlight. And I had this feeling that between maybe the 1st of November and the Christmas time, that there would be something that comes up that we would say, well, were people guided to decide a certain way? Because I feel that a decision that is made, whether it's sort of as part of a collective or whether it's made by one government or one nation, I don't know. But the feeling was that people would say afterwards, wasn't it great that they decided in the best way? That could have gone so wrong, but it didn't. And these are the feelings that I have on that colour. And I just wanted to share that with you. But I love all of the points of the year, the 8-fold points of the year. I really do. And if I had to pick my favourites, it would be the summer and winter solstices, because I love opposites. But I also love the autumn equinox, because although some people see it as the time when they want to wait for the spring to come back, I never see it like that. I see the beauty of winter. I see the wonder of winter, the wonder of how things can die back in nature and then be rebirthed in the spring, only to flourish again. And I feel that, seeing things in this way is quite inspiring. And we've all got our own way of looking at the seasons and our own sense of what they mean to us. But to me, being aware of the seasons is something that I greatly value. I am not so sure that I would adapt well to living in a part of the world where there was little change between the seasons, between light and dark. I don't know how I would adapt to that, because I suppose I appreciate the extremes of climate, the extremes of light and dark, and the way that the light falls in different ways, the way that the growth in nature changes. All of these things are especially valuable to me, as they are to many others. So I greatly appreciate the opportunity to live in the Northern Hemisphere and to have had the experience of living in 2 locations of the Northern Hemisphere, one much further north than the other, to experience these things. Thank you for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful autumn equinox, Mabon, or autumn season. I do offer personal rune readings and also spiritual readings where I communicate with the loved ones in the spirit world. Details of these readings and services can be found on my website, K Cook Spirit Wings. Once again, thank you for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you again sometime.